Hi, I'm Verna DeLauer and I will be facilitating video 1. This is an interactive video. The video is like a tutorial. There are points throughout the video where you will pause it and answer a set of questions. This is meant to encourage you to reflect on the material in real time. Please have a journal and writing utensil readily available. As a review, here are the course goals. This course is designed so that when you complete it, you will have acquired some useful skills to conduct a qualitative analysis. These skills could be used to enhance your understanding of your current work. This experience is meant to enhance CTP's collective qualitative skills. Our approach will be to adapt the videos and live interactive trainings to meet your needs as we learn more about your interests. Rather than trying to conduct each of the 3 trainings in 2-hour periods, we've added this video component so that our interactive trainings can be more productive. Lastly, we hope you will use this opportunity to build your own capacity to use these types of distance learning tools and platforms. Today's video provides an introduction to qualitative research methods so that you can discern them from other types of methodologies. We will discuss how to craft good research questions that will provide interesting data. Lastly, we will learn a few data collection techniques that are typically used in qualitative research. There are many definitions of qualitative research, but I personally like this one. Qualitative research involves finding out what people think and how they feel, or at any rate, what they say they think and how they say they feel. This kind of information is subjective. It involves feelings and impressions rather than numbers. Unlike quantitative research, qualitative research is capturing the subjective meanings people place on their experiences. Imagine yourself in a CTP meeting. Has there ever been a time when you realized that you understand the conversation or goal differently than another person? Qualitative research enables us to get at those different meanings and through that knowledge build shared meanings. Remember those grains of sand in our introductory call? This picture tricked us. At a glance, these do not look like grains of sand. Let's return to your CTP meeting. The many meanings individuals bring to the table are the different grains of sand. At a glance, we either cannot make them out or assume they are one thing or another. Qualitative research helps us to make sense of reality in a valid and reliable manner. It helps us to take those many meanings and create either a shared meaning or at least find how those meanings are connected with one another. Tackling Wicked Problems is a new book that I recently purchased. The premise is that today's social and environmental problems are so complex that we need new ways of tackling them. These are problems for which there are no final solutions or true solutions, and those tackling them must adapt as new information arises. The authors call for transdisciplinary collaboration to view wicked problems more holistically. In the environmental field, quantitative research far surpasses qualitative research in its ability to be funded by both government agencies and foundations. But not all of these wicked problems, like water scarcity, for example, can be solved quantitatively. We may understand how many people are without clean water, but how we got to this point and why does it continue to exist are perfect questions to be answered qualitatively. So to describe reality, you can quantify it, then construct mathematical models describing it, or you can experience it qualitatively, then make sense of it. There are a few differences between quantitative and qualitative research. In quantitative research, controlled experiments and other types of experimentation are often used to understand the cause and effect associated with a particular behavior. If we give this person praise after a certain behavior, for example, will he or she continue the behavior? The researcher is objective and is not part of the experiment. Quantitative research is deductive in nature, and the data of interest are numerical. Qualitative research is often conducted in a natural setting. The researcher can be a participant or an observer. The researcher is interested in the interaction among participants, particularly the words expressed. Now I'd like you to pause the video. In your journal, answer the following questions. What aspect of your work would you like to explore? How does it meet the characteristics of qualitative research? We will call this your case study. Here's my hypothetical case study. I would like to better understand the interpersonal dynamics within our staff meetings. This meets the characteristics of qualitative research because I am a participant and can explore the case study in its natural form. There is interaction among participants, which allows me to capture dialogue. I believe that a better understanding of the phenomenon of staff meetings will enable me to become a better facilitator of ideas toward more productive conversation. Now I'd like you to pause the video again, and in your journal, take quiz number 1. Identify the following methods as qualitative, quantitative, or mixed methods. A. I have a hypothesis that I'd like to test. I will create a controlled experiment to deduce whether my hypothesis is correct or incorrect. B. I am interested in people's opinions about a particular policy. I will create a survey that has a rating scale, multiple choice questions, and open-ended questions. C. I have a question about a particular phenomenon. I will observe the phenomenon and record people's thoughts and actions to come to a working theory. Here are the answers to quiz number 1. Testing hypotheses and using a deductive approach to research is used in quantitative research, as we mentioned earlier. And also, controlled experiments are more typical. If you use a mixed methods approach, surveys are very conducive to mixed methods or can be strictly quantitative. If you use mixed methods, you may mix some open-ended questions along with rating scales and multiple choice questions, and those different types of questions would be analyzed differently. And also, as we mentioned, qualitative research is typically inductive, and we'll talk more about that in a minute, and words are data. Next, I will describe 2 ways of thinking about the qualitative research process. First is the funnel approach. In this approach, you build rapport with those you are studying through participant observation or simply observation. You conduct informal interviews. You cover a wide range of ground in a fairly unsystematic manner. Then you take what you've learned and test your hypothesis through a quantitative analysis. So this would be a mixed method approach. Qualitative research can also stand alone. In the inductive approach, you rigorously and systematically code emerging themes or categories. This is an iterative process where you are analyzing multiple interpretations of the data to ultimately reduce overlap and redundancy and create a working theory. Now I'd like you to pause the video and in your journal answer the following question. Given your case study of interest, would you use the funnel approach or inductive approach, and why? For my case study, I'm interested in using the inductive approach because I specifically want to understand the interpersonal dynamics of staff meetings. This will enable me to develop a working theory. I'm not interested in testing my hunches with a larger population through a quantitative study. Next, we will discuss research questions. I'd like you to pause the video and answer the following questions in your journal. 1. Pretend you're going to conduct your study. Based on your current assumptions, list 3 to 5 hunches about what you think is going on. 2. For each hunch, write a few questions that must be answered to support or invalidate it. 3. Prioritize your questions. Which needs to be answered first, second, third, etc. For my case study, my hunch is that staff meetings could be much more productive. My hunch is that a few individuals overpower others during staff meetings, thereby leaving some voices unheard. My hunch is that the meeting facilitator provokes controversy through a style of facilitation. So my questions are, what are the specific interpersonal dynamics that occur during our staff meetings? In what ways do they hinder progress? Now I'd like you to pause the video. In your journal, take quiz number 2. Look at the following research questions. The goal of this hypothetical research is to understand how best to engage with underrepresented populations. Which 2 are the best way to structure a qualitative research question, and why? A. What causes underrepresented populations to avoid public engagement? B. Under what conditions would underrepresented populations be engaged? C. Which underrepresented populations do not participate in our public engagement activities? D. What is the relationship between underrepresented populations and particular types of engagement? If you answered options B and D, you are correct. These are well-structured qualitative research questions, and here's why. In general, qualitative research questions focus on outcomes rather than cause and effect. So we're interested in what explains something rather than what is the effect of something. Also, they have no single correct answer. So it's not as easy as saying who came to the CTP meetings over the last year. It's something that really lends itself well to those wicked complex questions and problems. Also, qualitative questions are worded in such a way and sometimes begin with words like how, under what conditions, in what ways, what is the relationship. They're also multi-layered. If we use a funnel approach, the questions get progressively more specific, especially if you're going to take some specificity and apply it to a broader population through a quantitative analysis. Whereas in an inductive approach, the questions get progressively more broad as you develop your working theory and you understand the situation better. Next, we'll discuss a few common data collection techniques. Surveys are used to explore a variety of questions. Surveys often collect numerical data, but they also collect quantitative data in addition to qualitative data in addition to quantitative. For example, we may ask, how many times did you come to a NEARS event in the past year? My example earlier. That would give us a number. Then we can follow up by asking, why did you attend the NEARS events? Or why didn't you attend? Qualitative and quantitative can complement each other nicely in surveys. In addition, one could conduct interviews or focus group and then use the qualitative data to create a more informed survey. We could also take the survey results and conduct interviews or focus groups with a smaller population to further explore those results. So sort of an inverse funnel approach. So the procedure for a survey would be to define the problem or question, formulate your hypothesis, develop a survey instrument and hopefully have time to test it, resources to test it, collect data, either through mixed methods or strictly quantitative, and analyze data. But here we're more interested in the mixed methods approach. Similarly, direct observation nicely complements quantitative data collection. Observation, either as a participant or an observer, involves being present and recording what you see and hear. It can help you develop some hunches about a situation, which could then be tested further with a quantitative analysis. Again, that funnel approach. So the procedure would be to determine the phenomenon you want to observe. And in advance, you could identify some behaviors or attitudes or perceptions, values that you will listen and watch for. But you may also just see what emerges in conversation. You define how long you're going to observe that phenomenon for, and you're going to record your observations and analyze data. Ethnography is used when you want to study a particular population of people, and you do this by embedding yourself within this population. Imagine you really want to understand how your state government makes decisions about environmental resources. To do this, you might spend a year hanging out at state government offices and observe interactions, as well as attend meetings to better understand decision-making from the perspectives of those involved. The procedure here would be to refine your problem and what setting you'd like to be embedded in, decide on the extent to which you will do that and how you will insert yourself into the daily lives of those you are trying to study, determine some data collection techniques, and collect data over time. A focus group is useful when you want to open up discussion to either a diverse and random group of participants or a group of participants from a particular affiliation or background. Focus groups enable you to capture both individual meaning and the process of meaning creation through conversation. The procedure here would be to create your research questions, recruit participants using some kind of incentive, like a monetary incentive or food, for instance. Select a moderator, conduct your focus group, and analyze your data and report your findings. Interviews are a very common data collection technique, and the types of interview questions can be used for collecting data through other methods that we discussed. Here are some types of interview questions. Informal conversational interview. This really works well when you are doing an ethnographic study. Also, when you're doing observation. So you have spontaneous and natural interaction, and you're just seeing what emerges. Also very good at the beginning of the funnel approach. General interview guide approach. This is more formal, but questions may vary per individual. So you leave things open to see where the conversation flows. This works very well in focus groups. Standardized open-ended interviews. This is where you ask identical questions to each person that you interview, but the questions are open-ended. They're not questions in which you can simply answer yes or no or give one specific answer. It's an open-ended question to provoke some conversation. Now I'd like you to pause the video. In your journal, answer the following question. Which data collection procedure best fits your case study and why? In my case study, I believe interviews paired with a focus group are the best data collection methods to answer my research question. Interviews will enable me to understand how each individual is making meaning of the situation. A focus group will enable me to observe the interpersonal group dynamics within a research setting. Next, we'll talk a little bit more about interviews. Please pause the video and in your journal, take quiz number 3. I'd like you to consider the 3 types of interview questions: informal conversational, general interview guide approach, and standardized open-ended interview questions. What type of questions would you use in each of the following data collection techniques? Survey, observational, ethnography, focus group. Here are the answers. As just mentioned, for observational ethnographic studies, the informed conversational approach, it works well. It allows you to get a little bit deeper into meaning without causing discomfort to others that you're trying to build a rapport with. So basically, you want to try to minimize the effect of your presence on the situation. And in a focus group, a general interview guide approach works well because you can be flexible in your questioning, but you still have somewhat of a guide. But you let the conversation emerge, given the people in the room. In a survey, you would use semi-structured open-ended questions if you were going to do a mixed method survey, and then some close-ended questions. And in an interview, you can really use any of the 3 types of questioning techniques, depending on your goals and objectives. So what's next? For our January 23rd training, please make sure to have this journal on hand where you've taken your notes. It will be very useful to our conversation. Also, read the following papers in the Go-To Training Library: Crafting Good Research Questions, and Qualitative Research Methods Overview. And if you have any questions, please don't hesitate to contact me or Chris. And we really are looking forward to talking to you on January 23rd. Thank you.